Hi, Caroline Kearney here at Powell Arts, and I'm standing with the marvelous Jill Pearson in front of one of her two pieces, which will be at our It Is Written show, which runs from now through October 29th, with a special preview during the Collingswood Fine Arts and Crafts Festival, which will be on August 19th and 20th. Jill, would you mind introducing us to this piece?
Yes, this piece is called Stranded. It's a 16 by 16 inch mixed media on gallery wrapped canvas, and it's placed in a maple floater frame.
This is a terrific form of like mixed media, because one of the things I really like about mixed media, it's not just that you, and the show It Is Written, it's not just that you incorporated the word pearl and that attaches to Stranded, it's also that you have illustrated different meanings of Stranded. So this looks like a seascape, which stranding, this looks like pearls come from the ocean, pearls come in strands, so it works in many different levels as a word, but also with mixed media, often different materials are a different vocabulary. And I like to, for me, that's very satisfying when things can exist on multiple levels. Mm-hmm. When you start a piece like this, how do you approach it? Like, when do you start?
Well, I start all of my work intuitively with mark making and building layers and removing layers, and then kind of refining it towards the end. Mm-hmm. It's funny that you use the word illustrate, because earlier in my career I was an illustrator. Mm-hmm. Most of my work is purely abstract, based on the landscape, but mm-hmm. but you're right that we have the word pearl up here, we have this overlay of collage here that looks like pearls, and then the title of the piece, Stranded, also strand of pearls, or also lost in the ocean, yeah. Stranded, or even a feeling of being stranded.
Yeah.
So,
and a feeling of being stranded is both isolating and also vivid, and like things are moving around. It's overwhelming, and there's a nice balance between the calm of the seascape and all of the different elements working in tandem with each other. When you approach a piece, where does the collaging come in? How do you think of it compositionally? I know you said
the first layer is usually drawing with charcoal or pastel. It probably paint then collage. It really goes layers and layers and layers. Mm-hmm. Again, when I was an illustrator, I did digital collage work in Photoshop, yeah. which involved a lot of layers, and it's a similar process working with paint. Unfortunately, there's no undo button, but it really, sometimes I have a hard time knowing when is a piece done. I work on multiple pieces simultaneously, and sometimes a piece might even sit for a month before
my mom always
make a very minor adjustment, and then it's done.
My mom, Carol, all of you know Carol, she always says that every artist has a piece that they at some point have up against the wall, because they don't know what to do with it yet, and it's just sitting in timeout waiting for them to finish it. And we had another artist, Chet Highsmith, who yesterday said, there's some pieces you can't wait to finish. And because you want to get it out of there, and it just seems like it's around forever. And there's other pieces that just go so quickly, and you're like, oh, that was so marvelous. And it's funny how there's that push and pull for artists.
That's exactly how my process is. So, yeah. And I do enjoy being a fine artist versus an illustrator, that I don't have as much of a pressure of a deadline for an art director.
Well, and also you have agency and advocacy mm-hmm. for your own work, which mm-hmm. I say all the time, because I'm very big on that. I'm like, Vive la France! Liberty! And I really I think that's one of the nice things about working with artists, is that you really get to see their ideas and what they are interested in giving perspective on, until they tie into the It Is Written show, what story they want to tell. Mm-hmm. And illustrating is beautiful, graphic design is beautiful, there's so much elegance and so many different ways of doing visual content, but there's something about, it's so very personal and almost intimate about mm-hmm. observing the work of an artist, because it really does give you a perspective on what they think is important and what they think they value, which mm-hmm. and also their taste and all of those things. And I want to ask you about color too, because we were talking earlier that you do a lot of blue, but you also, this does have a lot of blue, but it also has these beautiful little pops of greens and purpley pinks, and you've used white very effectively. When you think of your palette, kind of how do you approach your color use?
Early on, it kind of goes everywhere because you do end up getting little bits peeking through as I scratch through paint. Some pieces I kind of think more about like a color theory. You know, like this is an analogous colors, 3 colors next to each other on the color wheel. I find, especially with smaller works, you know, having too many colors going on just becomes too busy, especially with my. There's so many marks and layers in there. I think that it makes it a little bit more simple with the color. Kind of just leads to a better composition.
Yeah, there's this thing that we've talked about before with like if you're going to go maximalist, but know that for some people that maximalism is going to be too much. But there is a nice. With, in my opinion, some of the best compositions, especially when you're doing analogous colors, like hem that line between like too little and too much, and this is just in that sweet spot. I want to talk to you a little bit about your mark making and what kind of markings you're doing. You talked a lot about the scraping, but you also have tearing, and you're using a large vocabulary of like techniques here. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Some of the marks here, like the pearls, if you want to call them, are I actually created the collage paper on wet strength tissue paper, which becomes transparent when you glue it on. So that was one mark that I made. Again, and here this was made from marker on the same type of paper.
I like how they speak to each other.
And this is oil pastel. I do like a lot of horizontal kind of jagged lines. A lot of my work, I try to create this movement, like a sense of air flowing through. Sometimes just the overall composition, and then even the choice of where I place the colors. These pinks kind of draw your eye through a little circle there.
Well, and I like that you've utilized the palette both with the media that different medias that you've put on this. I also think it's really interesting the way that you've mirrored jagged lines, like more like curvaceous lines with straight edges that mirror the paper and the mark making, and I just think that's really effective.
That is one thing that I find what makes abstract in particular art interesting is differences. Difference, you have
and the
areas
way
of high
like
contrast, areas of more subtle areas, busy areas, calm areas, and different types of line. I think that is really what draws the eye around and creates the interest.
Yeah, and I promise this is the last thing I'm going to say, but I can't help myself. One of the things I really like about good abstract work is that, for me, the way that you've done similar shapes and markings, but you've carried them through. So we have dots here, we have dots here, you have circles here that mirror the dots. And I just think that that's very effective. I even like this paisley-ish that mirrors the lines that you're making there. And so the referentialness within the piece is very nice to see. So we're so happy that you're going to be in this show.
I'm very excited. This will be my first time here.